Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. If you are going through a rough patch and you need to hear something that might help you see things for what they truly are, you're in the right place. Today, we are going over the book Think and Grow Rich. I'm going over chapter 1, the introduction. And I think that once you start to really understand ideas, they really stick in your mind because you are doing repetitions, right? You're doing reps. I was a PE teacher, a health and wellness coach for years, and I've been a teacher for 10 years. So I've done the reps of teaching, and what I've realized is once you master something, you are able to teach it. And this book I am beginning to master. There's a few chapters that I have not quite yet mastered. However, I really understand it now, and this is what I want to pass on. I want to pass on some quotes from the book, and I'm going to teach you how that you can apply them to your life. So if you're going through something, even if you're not, even if you're just looking to level up, this is where you want to be, honey. We're going to rep it every day. We are going to be going over this book over the next couple weeks, chapter by chapter, and really studying it, repeating what we learned so we don't forget. Because what I know to be true is that anybody I've ever met that's in shape, they don't even necessarily sweat every time they work out. Okay, believe me, I know it's crazy. It's just the consistency with which they do it. Anybody that I've ever seen that is, you know, a healthy body weight, which is something that's obviously very difficult for Americans, what I've realized about them is it's not a matter of, oh, I'm on a diet, I'm on a diet. They literally just take care of themselves daily and have practices that reinforce those habits. They simply rep it. So all you have to do is rep what you want to see in your world. And this book is all about repping the mind and creating a mind that's impenetrable, that is successful, that thinks and grows rich. So let's get started. The first quote I want to go over is psychologists have correctly said that when one is truly ready for a thing, it puts itself into appearance. So, simply said, when the student is ready, the teacher appears. And I love this quote because as a teacher, I've realized this to be very true. And I think that this is why I left teaching again, and why I always leave teaching, and why this time I'm burning the boats and I'm really going for it. Because here's the thing, when the student is ready, the teacher appears. And what I've come to realize time and time again is that when kids are in a system that's free, okay, that's already covered, that they don't have to, that they don't value very much, where they're forced to show up, where there's all these rules, blah, 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 and they have to follow this whatever, they're really not that interested in growing, learning. Some are, and I have been the perfect teacher for some students. However, I think I'm in a place where I'm ready to teach people that are looking for an answer to help them discover who they are, instead of being forced to sit in a class and listen to the teacher because day after day, because you have no other choice. So I think this is so important. When one is truly ready for a thing, it puts itself into appearance. And that could even be negative things too. Unfortunately, sometimes we have these negative things that we honestly pray about, whether you are not religious, or like, you know, you just meditate on things, or whatever you call it, speaking to the universe, just sitting with yourself, meditating, thinking, daydreaming, whatever you call it. If you have something in your mind that you've been like, oh, it's been in my mind, it's been bugging me, it's been bugging me, I know it's true, like your intuition's telling you, and then it manifests itself in real life. Sometimes that looks dark, sometimes it looks beautiful, sometimes it looks dark, and it's really your choice to look at that and go, okay, what do I do with this now? So, and I think this is what leads us to the next quote, which I think is really interesting, which is, failure is a trickster with a keen sense of irony and cunning. It takes great delight in tripping one when success is almost within reach. So every time I start seeing myself take a big L, I'm like, oh, frick, oh, frick. And I think this is why my grandma, straight up, she went to the hospital, okay? Or she has cancer, right? And the day she finds out she has cancer, she's like, time to go to the casino, right? This woman's almost 90 years old. You don't think she understands this book? You don't think she understands this principle just by living it every day, right? And not too long ago, she was getting cancer treatment, and she's like, oh, I gotta go to the bathroom. She passed out on the floor of the bathroom. They had to keep her overnight, and she's got the dog in her. The following like day or two after she just sat and recovered or whatever, probably has a big bruise on her side, she was like, time to go to the casino. Now, I'm not a gambler by any means. I'm not promoting gambling by any means. But what I'm saying is that the idea is there, that failure is a keen trickster. And it loves to trip us right before we have success. So, if you're going through something, take a moment, realize that, I always told my students, especially since I taught like PE and we were doing sports and everything, and they'd come to me about things, and then they tell you personal things too, because obviously if you're easy to talk to, like kids want to talk to you. But I would always say it takes a couple L's to make a W. So sometimes you got to take that L to the chest and keep it pushing. So I genuinely believe that. Take the L's, make it a W because it's just around the corner, even though it feels like failure is so imminent and it just won't freaking end. Now, this next quote I wanted to go over is, when you begin to think and grow rich, you will observe that riches begin with a state of mind and with definiteness of purpose, with little or no hard work. And I can actually testify to this because I was going to, or a few years ago, I started making YouTube videos and I really enjoyed it and I was having fun and I was very consistent, once a week, every week. And it was joyful and I learned so much, right? And I was really, really loving it. However, what happened that was like, oh girl, is then I was like, oh, I like teachers are worth more. And there was videos of me literally saying like, I believe teachers are worth more. Like we should get paid more. And like, I'm going to find a way because I believe it in my mind that we are valuable and we are valuable to society. And I still believe that. And it's always been here. However, here's what happened. I took a job making over $80,000 a year teaching privately to 3 students. Now, the reality is that didn't work out for me because those students were not ready for this teacher. Let me just tell you, okay? Let's not get too much into it because I don't want to speak negatively about a family or about children because kids are kids and, whatever. It's not a big deal. But what I realized through that was that teachers were valuable and I did raise my price and it was very possible. And it happened like that without any resistance, just because I was thinking about it and meditating on it so much. I would constantly tell myself this. So that's something I want you to take with you. Whatever you're meditating on, whatever you're circulating about is what will manifest in its real life. So then after that, I quit that job. And then my frequency had kind of dropped because the energy of those students not being ready for this teacher really kind of brought me down. And then I took another job as a teacher making less, but it was very joyful. Honestly, I worked a lot less hours. I had way more prep time. I was teaching health and wellness, so I was getting in the best physical shape of my life. And truly, that job was such a blessing. And I got paid well considering what I was doing and for the amount of effort I was giving. So I was cool with it. However, recently I did leave that job. And I'm now in a space where I'm really committed to this idea that teachers are worth more. But I think what has changed in that idea is that I'm much more creative than I perceived myself to be. And I'm willing to do the repetitions and my desire is burning. So that really leads us to this part right here. You will observe that riches begin with a state of mind with definiteness of purpose. I know what my purpose is. My purpose is to teach people, actually not teach people, because I'm kind of done in that capacity. I'm going to help you discover what's already inside of you and help you unlock what you already know to be true. And that's where I'm at. I have that definiteness of purpose. I have some children's books I'm working on that will teach children to understand themselves and discover who they are without noise from the outside world. So I have a definiteness of purpose and it doesn't feel like hard work because it's coming to me and I'm acting on it right away. So that will be talked about in later chapters from this book because I've been literally just taking this book and living it. Again, highly recommend. The next quote that really stuck with me is, another weakness found in altogether too many people is the habit of measuring everything and everyone by their own impressions and beliefs. Something I wrote down the other day, because again, by your own impressions and beliefs. You should not measure people on your own ideas or values or whatever, because here's the thing that God, who did I hear say it? But when I heard this, I was like, it just stung me so bad that I had to write it down. Okay, people moralize what they can't master. So the truth is that you might be like, well, that person's not right. Like, that's not a good thing to do. Like, why would they do that? It kind of doesn't matter. That's their life. They're allowed to act however they choose, and that's their spirit and their choice to live it however they want. And there's nothing wrong with that. But what you need to realize is that people moralize what they cannot master. So if you don't understand somebody and you don't understand why they would act like that, you might moralize and be like, well, they're a narcissist, they're a piece of this, or they're the worst, blah, 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 blah. Maybe you can't master it, so you try to moralize it and make it something that maybe it's not even, right? So I think that that is something to consider, um, is that your own impressions and beliefs are not necessarily the truth, and that's okay. Now, a lot of us have heard this quote. I think that, people like Oprah Winfrey say it a lot. And like Henley wrote this a long, long time ago. And man, do people quote it constantly. But what I think is so pertinent about what they said is that they state the quote, but then they talked about how he should have elaborated on it. And that's what I want to elaborate on. So, you are the master of your fate and the captain of your soul. Now, what the author says about this quote specifically, right? Obviously, you're the master of yourself. You can direct your own spirit. I get that. That's pretty obvious to understand. But here's what I loved. He said, he should have told us with great emphasis that this power makes no attempt to discriminate between destructive thoughts and constructive thoughts, that it will urge us to translate into physical reality thoughts of poverty just as quickly as it will influence us to act upon thoughts of riches. And this is where over time we'll talk about more of like the subconscious and conscious mind. But truly, what we're trying to get to is that your brain will not understand the difference between hyperfixating on positive or negative feelings and will materialize the one which you focus on most, right? So I love that idea. That idea, I don't love it. I just know it to be true. Is the fact of reality is that where attention goes, energy flows, and the more you rep those positive feelings, the more you will see positivity in your life. One thing that I did with my students is every day at the beginning of class, we do 3 things. It took 15 minutes, and this is something I encourage you to do. 1, sit quietly for 5 minutes and meditate. Now, meditate might look like prayer for you. It might look like just quiet time. It might look like talking to someone. It might be asking spirit guides, or I don't know, whatever you believe in, right? And for me personally, it's usually just sitting and being like, and channeling, just kind of absorbing and hearing what I hear, attuning my ears, or it could even be me sitting and meditating on an idea, meaning repeating something in my mind. Remember, reps, that I want out of life, repeating something in my mind that I want out of life. And I rep it and rep it and rep it until I see it again in appearance, until it's here, right? So something to consider, very important. But yeah, the next thing he says is this, which if you're somebody who's like a little bit hippy dippy, even if you're not, it makes sense, because the truth is that, again, where attention goes, energy flows. So it's very simple to understand, but in practice, it's a lot harder to see for what it is. Now, let's get into it. Our brains become magnetized with the dominating thoughts which we hold in our minds, and by means with which no man is familiar, these magnets attract to us the forces, the people, the circumstances of life which harmonize with the nature of our dominating thoughts. So whatever you're fixating on, whatever you're meditating on, that is what's going to dominate your thoughts, and you're going to eventually harmonize with that, and your frequency will be at that level to attract things at that level. That's why I would meditate with my students. Then after meditation, we would do good things, which is where you turn to your friends and you share something good going on in your life. Okay, what's good? I was like, this is not your time to trauma dump. You can do that later when you're working out and working off that energy. But right now, it's simply good things. And each child would share something. And I said, if you can't think of anything good, go ahead and just turn to your friend and say, I woke up today, because some kids did not get the chance. And these students would sit and they'd say little things. Oh, I got to see my mom this weekend, or I went to the lake, or I woke up today. I had a good breakfast. Just tiny things that were something they were grateful for. And this is so important to fixate on the things that are going well in your mind. Now, I'm not talking about toxic positivity, but I am talking about meditating more on the positive than the negative, because the more you sit in that negative space, the more it appears in your hand, as the book is saying. So, let's keep moving on. This point I think is very important and something that I'm really aware of now and really putting into practice, which is, before we can accumulate riches in great abundance, we must magnetize our minds with the intense desire for riches, that we must become money conscious until the desire for money drives us to create definite plans for acquiring it. And I think this is something that has really shifted for me. So I used to, when I read this book, I used to skim over, okay, we need to magnetize our brain riches, blah, 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 make plans for it, yada, yada, right? I used to do that. But what I was really missing was drives us to create definite plans for acquiring it. And this is where my whole thought pattern has shifted. I now am starting to think about how I am going to get it, how I'm going to get after it and attain it and find it and source it, right? This is something that takes a lot of time and a lot of, again, I think that as you read books, that's why it's so important to rep it, because just as with weights, again, this is such a beautiful analogy, but just as with weights, as you're lifting weight, right? The more you rep, even if it's small amounts, like I usually rep like 10 pounds, like I'm super light. But the more I rep 10 pounds, I am perfectly capable of doing 20, right? But I like to rep light. But I can do 20, I can do more. And every rep that I give myself, I'm giving myself the ability, especially if I increase the weight, to do more. For the first time ever, I was able to do a pull-up. I'm 32 years old. That's pretty impressive, right? It's a huge shift for me personally. And I think that when you begin to rep things out and repeat it, you start to see things or unlock things, right? Heavier weights unlock things that maybe you weren't able to before. And now with some more awareness, I'm able to understand this book differently, which is why it's so important to reread things that really resonate with you, because you will be able to understand it. And one more thing on harmonizing, which is so not ironic, but exactly how the universe works according to this book, right? He was talking about how we harmonize with the nature of our dominating thoughts. And I went through something recently where I was like, you know, I'm kind of going through it, but I felt like my mind was exploding. Like, and it seems like that would be a bad thing, but I realized right away, like in the blink of an eye, that I needed this book. I went and got it out of our storage unit. I was like, hey, can we go pick up this book out of the storage unit? I need it. I just knew I needed it, but it's because I started harmonizing with this frequency, which is so not interesting. It's exactly how the universe works. It's not weird. It's exactly how the universe works. You'll hear me say that a lot. But because now I'm in a frequency where I'm understanding this book on a different level. So it's so important that when you feel called to something, in the moment you feel called, you act on that desire, right? You create definite plans for acquiring it. So that's why right away, when I thought about this book, I was like, we got to go get it, because I know that it's going to, I guess I know it's going to change my life in a really good way. So that's going to be chapter 1, the introduction. A very simple intro, just a few quotes that really stuck with me. And I'm really excited to go into chapter 2, where we're going to talk all about desire, because desire is where I'm at now, which I think is really manifesting in beautiful ways. And I'm really starting to act on all this. So my God, is it sticking so hard in my brain? And I'm just really excited to go over how desire is going to change your world. And again, Think and Grow Rich is about money. However, you can apply this to growing. There's so many ways to be rich. You can be rich in way more ways than one. So what I want you to take away with you is something that Bob Proctor taught me. And he was a huge advocate of this book. And it's the quote I want to leave you with today. It's something that you could rep daily. So go ahead and pull out your pencil and or a pen and write it somewhere where you'll see it daily so that you don't miss a beat. I have a few things written here and I'll show you them. I'll read them to you. But here is the thing I've been repeating in my head constantly so that I can appear here. Here it is. I'm about to walk into the most abundant, balanced, wealthy, and successful period of my life. I naturally attract good fortune and am wealthy in more ways than one. I give myself permission to prosper, and I have the power to build the exact life I desire. This is something that I have been repeating to myself every day. I get into like, it sounds kind of creepy, but I get into like a trance like state. I'll just rock and repeat it and repeat what I can remember. I don't have the whole thing memorized yet, but I've been doing it for a few weeks now, and I'll read it to myself in my mind, and I'll see it and I'll hear it and I'll feel it. And what he talks about later in the book is really being able to like visualize it, which I'm getting better at, but it's still very difficult for me. But I'm practicing, I'm repping it, because I know the more I rep it, the more I'll unlock the next step. Another couple things I have written is I will have a steady flow of currency from multiple streams of income on an increasing basis. I think that's really helpful as I start visualizing my business and how I want this to go, and the children's books I'm creating and the courses I'm working on and all of that. And the more personal business related thing that I have written is my business helps people internationally. I want to help people all around the world uncover and discover what they already know to be true. So, if you are at rock bottom, we're going to create a foundation. And I think that's where we're at today. You might be at rock bottom. That is okay. There's no problem with being at rock bottom. Just create a foundation from there and get started again. There is only abundance, balance, wealth, and success on its way to you.